To talk this all over, I'm joined by Lou Gargiulo. He's the campaign co-chair for Trump in New Hampshire. Also CNN political commentator and Republican strategist S.E. Cupp. And Harris Zafar, the national spokesperson for the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community. Lou, I want to start with you. You are a Trump supporter. Do you support this idea to ban Muslims from coming into the United States? And if so, why?
I support the idea that we have to take drastic steps at this point to protect the homeland. I think San Bernardino and what happened in Paris speaks to the chaos that exists across the world with radical Islamic terrorists entering both Western Europe and the United States with the sole purpose of killing non-Muslim people. Do I believe we should ban them indefinitely? Absolutely not. What I do believe is that we need to take a step back, figure out how we ensure that they're properly screened, and then allow people in. The screening process, obviously, what happened in San Bernardino speaks to the fact that the lady came into this country and obviously wasn't properly screened. Nobody even knew where she came from in Pakistan. How do you allow people in like that at this point in time?
So, but all Muslims, you know, and by the way, the guy was born in Illinois.
I recognize he was born in Illinois, and I was speaking about his wife that he found on a Muslim dating site that was brought into the country, most likely with the sole purpose of radicalizing him. And those are the dangers that we're faced today. I mean, the situation is much different than anything else we've ever been faced with. And I recognize that what Mr. Trump said can be viewed controversially. But clearly, we need to take steps. The current administration on Sunday night came out and said, same old, did not come out with anything dramatic on how to resolve the issue with ISIS. And until we do, and until Islamic leaders in this country and across the world come out and condemn the radical Islam element that exists, we are going to have continued problems. And I call for Islamic leaders to speak out as harshly as they do about everything else about what is going on.
All right, Harris, you just heard it. You've heard Donald Trump say he wants to ban Muslims from entering the United States. You just heard a Trump supporter say he wants to ban Muslims, at least for now, from entering the United States. Your response?
Well, we within the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, because we're Muslims who believe in the Messiah, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, we've said from day one that the safety and security of this nation is our top priority, which is why we believe that the remarks by Donald Trump should not be dignified with a response for three reasons. Number one, it's impractical. There's literally no way you can find out who is or who is not a Muslim when they're coming in. Only 15% of the Muslim population in the world is of Arab descent. Number two, it's against the morals of the American grain, which is built on liberty, not on fear. And finally, number three, it feeds into the extremist ideology, which is why I'm beginning to wonder if Mr. Trump is in cahoots and affiliation with ISIS, because everything he says is fodder for the recruitment that they use in their videos to try to prove to Muslims that America is against Muslims, they're vilifying Muslims, and you should join us to get retribution. So within the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, not only have we, since our inception 127 years ago, been vocal in speaking out against radicalization, despite the fact that Mr. Trump and his supporters are burying their heads in the sand, not listening to us, but we've paved the path of a true solution to protecting our homeland security with what we're calling True Islam, that's launching very soon to identify True Islam versus the extremists. So champion our voices that have been there since day one, instead of pushing us aside and saying we're part of the problem.
S.E.?
That comment you made about
hang on, Lou. I want to get
absolutely absurd.
What's absurd?
The comment you made that Mr. Trump is in cahoots with ISIS.
Oh, I think it's perfectly clear.
Lou,
Everything he's saying is giving them content for their videos. So we are against ISIS. We're against anyone who's supporting their ideology. And he is feeding all of the content that's being used in their videos to prove to the naive Muslims out there who know no better to say that this is what America's all about. So we want to continue to partner with our American leaders, not people like him who seem to be in cahoots with him.
Let me ask you, S.E., about a little bit about the political angle of this, because David Brody, who works for Christian Broadcasting, noted yesterday that he used the word bravery initially, but then he talked about the courage to discuss the issue of Muslims coming into the United States. Do you think that this will play with evangelical voters, S.E.? Do you think that there will be Republican voters in key early voting states who see what Donald Trump said and say, hey, you know what? It's not so crazy?
Well, clearly his supporters are behind it, but I think most Republicans find what Donald Trump said to be repulsive, and it is on multiple levels. It's repulsive morally. It's repulsive if you cherish the Constitution. It's repulsive if you're a good conservative. It's repulsive if you like freedom of religion. It's repulsive on so many levels. And frankly, I don't know how Trump surrogates like Lou can sleep at night peddling this unconstitutional, unconservative, and un-American garbage for a guy who, let's face it, will never be president.
S.E., if it's repulsive, how can Paul Ryan say that he would still vote for Donald Trump as the nominee?
Yeah, I mean, you have to point out that almost to a person, every representative of the Republican Party has totally summarily denounced what Donald Trump said. But you also have to understand, what are they going to do? Tell everyone that they're just going to stay home on election day? They can't do that. So I think they're having difficulty, trying to sort of situate themselves for what they all believe will not end up a Trump nomination. But in the eventual case, they can't just say they're going to sit home. That's not practical.
Was the pledge a bad idea? I mean, Reince Priebus forced every candidate to sign a pledge to say they would support the nominee. In retrospect, was that a mistake?
Yeah, I'm writing about that today. I'm glad you asked. I think it was. I mean, it's procedure, and so I understand that part of it, and everyone sort of lives under this specter of a third-party candidate, which no one wants. However, this was a guy who didn't want to be married to the Republican Party, right? I mean, this is a guy who said he was considering a third-party run, who had voted for Democrats before, supported Democrats before, believed in some fairly liberal, policies before. And here we were not only begging him to marry us, but flying up to New York to deliver the ring on one knee in person. And I think that does make it easier for Democrats to say, this guy's your brand. Even when all of us denounce what he says, it's very easy for the Democratic Party to paint the entirety of the GOP field with the Trump brush.
Wow, S.E., Lou, Harris, great discussion. Thank you very much. All fodder from next week's Republican debate, which will be absolutely fascinating.